To me, it genuinely feels like Jim Ratcliffe has done more in a couple of weeks as part owner of Manchester United than the Glazers did in like 20 years of owning our football club. I want to explain exactly what I mean. Jim Ratcliffe, he knew what the easy wins were when he came in as part owner of Manchester United. And he is executing those right now. Currently, it's just words. And actions will speak louder than words. But until he officially owns 25% of Manchester United, Ratcliffe cannot actually do too much. But I tell you what, everything he is doing, he's making the right first noises. He's making the right noises and making the right first impressions. Because the Glazers, as owners of our football club, lurked in the shadows. Any problems, they just got on their plane and went to Florida. Let's ignore it all. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. Their ignorance was their greatest strength. That's why they could just lurk in the shadows. That's why they could use United as a cash point. Now, you remember I did a video before Ratcliffe took over, and I said that these were the 5 most important things that he had to do. Number 1, communicate with fans. And I'm going to bring up about 5 different examples of that already. Number 2, speak with Erik ten Hag, which has already been done. Number 3, which is going to come once the takeover is confirmed and ratified by the Premier League in early to mid-Feb. Number 4, already happened before he took over. And number 5 has been going on for a long time. So everything I wanted Jim Ratcliffe to do at the start, he is doing. And if you rewind to March, Jim Ratcliffe has taken a public approach to this whole process, okay? Sheikh Jassim and Jim Ratcliffe. I don't want to go back to talking about it all because it's just exhausting. But back in March, he was at Old Trafford with Dave Brailsford, with Jean-Claude Blanc, to meet Richard Arnold, to meet Manchester United, and to discuss their offer. Sheikh Jassim, of course, never came anywhere near Manchester United. Was it Fadi Bakos? I think. Anyway, it's like 3 or 4 random people that nobody had ever known. Ratcliffe has kept his face quite close to this whole deal throughout. And only, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, Jim Ratcliffe went to Old Trafford and he held a face-to-face meeting with all staff at Old Trafford, sat there alongside Dave Brailsford. He explained, despite only owning 25% of the club, despite the fact that the Glazers still technically pay the wages of all the people he's speaking to in Old Trafford, because that's going to come under commercial operations, match day revenue and stuff like that. He was explaining to them about wanting to bring Manchester United back to the top, all the problems that have existed at the club for the last 10 years. And not at any point have the Glazers ever done that and had that meeting with staff. Not only did he meet staff, but he went to Carrington, met Kath, met Erik ten Hag, met the players. His face has been present since day one. Now, there's going to be people in the comments going, this is just nothing more than a PR exercise. He's another Glazer. I can't tell you how un-Glazer-like all of this is. It is the polar opposite. Him going to Old Trafford, he went there and he organised a meeting with all of the press. And for 5 minutes, Jim Ratcliffe stood there and talked to the press. He couldn't explain too much because, as again, he is tied by the rules of the stock exchange. He has signed an NDA. I don't know whether it's he signed an NDA to not slate the Glazers. I don't know whether that changes after he gets 25%, but let's truth be told, I think he's still going to keep a pretty tight lip on that, given they still own 75% of the club that he wants to buy. But he is restricted on what he can say about his plans overall until it goes through the stock exchange. But again, speaking to the press, the physical presence, it's so un-Glazer-like. Sitting there alongside Fergie, well, the Glazers have done that every so often, but rarely. And it was this moment here yesterday, which is the reason why I'm doing this video, which is a real big step up. Jim Ratcliffe met Manchester United fan representatives and met the Manchester United Supporters Trust, spoke to the fans forum, the fans advisory board, and he sat there for an hour with Dave Brailsford, with Jean-Claude Blanc, and discussed plans. Now, I'm going to run through what must have reported in a statement on what was said in that meeting. Jim Ratcliffe was accompanied by Dave Brailsford, Jean-Claude Blanc, and other senior club officials, and we had more than an hour's discussion about where the club is at and what needs to happen to restore United back to the top. His main message was that everything at United needs to be ruthlessly focused on creating winning teams on the field. Something we are sure all fans will agree on. he also expressed the view that he views our club as a community asset and addressed that his purpose in taking a share in United is not to make money. Now, for a lot of people, correctly, you're going to be looking at that from a cynical perspective, considering Jim Ratcliffe is a billionaire. But truth be told, the dude's 71. He's already established a £1 billion business. He's already got hundreds of millions in the bank. It feels like, I don't know. Again, this is a rose-tinted glass point of view, and I understand that point. But why would money be driving him now? Sometimes the rich just get richer and they just want to keep getting rich. So that, of course, could be part of it. But he's reiterated on kind of more than one occasion now that it's not about taking money. And what that creates is accountability that they can be held to as owners. And because they're not going to be lurking in the shadows, they're going to have to front to that. They're going to. He's already promised and pledged to. Well, maybe not promised, but he's pledged to speak to the press directly in 3 to 4 weeks, where they're going to grill him on his overall plans. A little bit more down here. This is what Musk said to Jim Ratcliffe. What the key priorities were: a clear plan to get back to the top, putting in place a football structure with the right people in the right roles, an investment plan in both the teams and the stadium, and building a genuine and strong partnership with fans that support success. All the right noises are being made by Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. They're playing a very smart game right now. And a lot of you may see this as a game. But to me, as I said in this video, the communications was the most important thing. And from going to Old Trafford to speak to the staff, right? To go into Carrington to speak to Ten Hag and the players, to go into Old Trafford to speak to the press, to sit next to Fergie, to having meetings with the fan representatives. The right noises are being made. And on top of that, yesterday, Jim Ratcliffe met with Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, to speak about the role of Manchester United in the community, to speak about the redevelopment of Old Trafford, something that he has pledged to invest in heavily. And that's a big thing for a lot of United fans, and correctly so. And then when it comes to actual decisions, this is only a small fragment of what's needed. But it's a first little tiny visible example of Ineos improving a football decision that's made at our club. Because we should have a buyback clause on that Hannibal deal. And Man United, like Kovar in the summer, like others before, probably not got a buyback clause in. Just sell them on, get a quick buck. That's only ever so slight change, but I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic about Ratcliffe and Brailsford and Blanc and whoever comes in, Ashworth or Mitchell, and the actual presence that they are going to have at Old Trafford. The Glazers used Manchester United as a cash cow, siphoned money out of our club to the point that they hemorrhaged our cash flow, to the point now where we are reliant, as a club of our size, on credit cards to make signings, to pay off interest loans because of a debt that they forced on the club. And they squeezed the legacy value of our club so much that they had to sell 25% off. Now, will Jim Ratcliffe be the Messiah? I doubt it. Not until he can own 100% of our club. But is he making all the right noises right now to make me at least optimistic, more optimistic about the years that we've got ahead of us compared to the recent years that we've had behind us? Yeah, I think he is. And I go back to that, and I think Ratcliffe right now has done everything that he can do to communicate with fans. Once the actual deal goes through, that's when we need real clarity on the investment plans, on Old Trafford, on the debt, on the full takeover. What's the pathway to that? There's still more communication that is needed. But every single little thing, from being at Old Trafford in March to being at Old Trafford a couple of weeks ago, speaking to all the staff, to being at Carrington, to being at Old Trafford, to speaking to the press, and now to speaking with fan representatives and meeting the Mayor of Manchester, Ratcliffe is showing his hand and he's putting his face to it. It creates accountability, and that is a far cry from the shadow lurkers that we've had before. Doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, no. But it does give me anyway, a little bit of optimism about what's coming ahead for United. Just a little bit.